Greetings, financial planning world. Dan Davis, co-founder. It's my distinct pleasure to bring you Industry Trends Part 4, Increased Securities Industry Regulation. I remember when I was just starting off in the business, fall of 1988, I was sitting in a really cool conference room, and it was neat. There was this video coming in through TV out of Minneapolis, and one of the executives for the firm that I had just started with made the comment, within 5 years, this industry that we serve in would be paperless. If you fast forward each decade that I've been serving over the last 3, I've seen just the amount of paperwork and forms explode in volume. Now, granted, much of that we're now able to do digitally, but the amount of time and human resource cost involved is still high. It's my humble opinion that some of this increased paperwork, disclosures, etc., has been helpful for clients, but more often than not, it has just been increased bureaucracy and red tape for practitioners and our teams. In 1998, I became an OSJ, and after that, a Chief Compliance Officer. And early on, there were 4 financial advisors within our ecosystem, and it took me about 1 hour a week to do the compliance work required. Fast forward time, we still have 4 producing financial advisors within our ecosystem, but the compliance time is more like 6 hours a week. Now, 2 of those advisors, the volume of their business has gone through the roof, so maybe that 1 hour should be 3, but for the 1 hour to be 6 just makes the point. On top of that, back then our consulting fees annually for outside compliance was $0, and now it's around $2,500 a year. In talking with my peers, both that 6 hours and $2,500 a year are both very low compared to other offices. I think you can credit that to financial planning practices that are mostly advisory, run much more simple business models. It's been my experience since 1988 that there's really 3 reasons why the amount of paperwork that we have has gone up all around regulations. First is an attempt to really strengthen our system. Second is an attempt to move customer care forward. And then lastly is dealing with corruption. If you take a look at BlackRock's white paper on, they dubbed the term GFC, Global Financial Crisis. If you do pre-GFC, so call it 1998 to roughly 2008, the focus for regulation was around increasing the stability of banks and broker-dealers. Ironically, very little was done to the investment banks, and that was a big part of the global financial crisis. When you do post-GFC, so really 2009 to present, as we speak, this is June of 2020, there's been 9 major chunks of regulation that's been put in place either through SEC, OCC, or Congress. That's roughly 1 a year. I think you can get the general point that increased regulation continues. The second point is that increased customer care. And as a certified financial planner, I really do respect what the CFP board has put in place on a high standard of care. So I'm biased that I think the industry should move towards do what's best for your customers. As an RIA, we take that investment fiduciary standard very serious. So things like the DOL and Reg B, I'm all for those. I don't like increased regulation, but anything that moves us further on the continuum of increased customer care, I'm a fan of. The one that's really my pet peeve is in dealing with corruption. If you go back to 1988, I was banging out the phones on cold calls. I mean, literally, probably 6 to 8 hours a day I'd spend on the phone. Afterwards, we'd go have drinks, and there was this company that the nickname was Blind 'em and Rob 'em. The The amount of corruption that went through there was almost like the mafia inside of the financial service industry. And the amount of white-collar crime and ripping off customers was staggering. It's very probable that that firm, as well as some others, were the impetus for Wolf on Wall Street. It doesn't take very long to get to Michael Milken and Drexel. If you take a look at the corruption that went on in the junk bond industry, late 1980s, Milken made over $1 billion. Over $1 billion. Shortly after that, he was indicted on 90 plus accounts. I want to say it was like 98. Unfortunately, he only served 22 months in jail. According to Wikipedia, he grew up in a very middle-class family. Ironically enough, he's now worth $3.7 billion. I really believe that the punishment in our industry for white-collar crime is so low compared to what it should be that that's a big part of the problem. It really seems to me that instead of severe punishment, they give slaps on the wrist and then increase bureaucracy and paperwork to the people like you and me who are really trying to do a good job for our customers. Fast forward time to the GFC, global financial crisis. You take a look at the financial meltdown that occurred due to subprime in the banking industry, and then you have the Dodd-Frank Act. And lastly in that area, it doesn't take much to remember Bernie Madoff and the amount of damage that he did to customers and to our industry is something that probably goes on forever. And reiterating, my belief is that our system does not punish white-collar crime nearly severely enough, rather slaps on the wrist that then turn into more paperwork, more forms, more regulation for you and I. In conclusion, I really think that there's two main points. One is that increased regulation will continue. Number two is that the trends that I mentioned in our industry trends series on mergers and acquisitions of how you're going to continue to see scale coming in our industry, I believe that one of the mega trends is increased regulation that's going to continue to move that forward. I'll give you an example. At the age of 54, my willingness to put up with things that I think are nonsense are just a lot lower than that they were when I was, say, 35. Well, if the average financial advisor's age is 57, I've never seen like a bell curve that says how many advisors are over 57, but we've got to have a lot of us that are in their 60s and 70s. Their desire and willingness to deal with nonsense is less and less. I think that moves them more towards wanting to collaborate inside of systems where the OSJ and compliance work is pushed off, thus the whole mega trend of mergers and acquisitions. In summary of all this, just to sort of wrap it all up, financial planning world is a community that's made up of healthy financial planners that really want to strive towards excellence together, excellence in areas of financial planning and business management. If that's something that is attractive to you, you're a sole practitioner or part of a small office, I would encourage you to take a look at financialplanningworld.com to schedule a 30-minute conversation to see how you might be able to connect. We have two routes, Route 1, Route 2. Route 1 is much more extensive, where someone comes in, keeps their autonomy, their ownership, wraps around within our RIA. Second is someone who just pays a monthly subscription fee to be part of our ongoing best practice learning. We value things like community, customer care, financial planning, excellence, and collaboration. If those are the kind of things that you value, I encourage you to check us out, join in, learn more. At least go into Financial Planning World on LinkedIn, follow us so you can be kept abreast whenever we're making updates to our best practices and reaching out. In summary, I just want to thank you for your time. From Financial Planning World, signing off.